Hello, hello, hello. Echo, echo, echo. Hello, everybody. Wednesday evening. It's been snowing. And I'll tell you what, all the roofs around are covered in snow. I don't think it's going to settle though, but it's flipping cold. I'll tell you something, I'm bloody glad the heating at work is working, because normally it breaks down when it gets to the coldest spell of the year. So we're having a good bit of luck this year. Hello, horror. I didn't go deep with the generations, so nobody cares about the Fords. And here in my country, everybody said then my dad's was 5 times on sale after he sold it. Okay. Well, anyway, good evening. It's Wednesday. It's the middle of the bloody week. It's the most boring day of the bloody week. That's why we're doing live streams, because Wednesdays are crap. Have you seen the new Hyundai Kona? It is drastically changed, like the Ford Mondeo second generation. I haven't seen one, no. If I ever get a chance, I'll look one up. I take it's made in China. The Chinese Communist Party are funding it, no doubt. So you can guarantee it'll fall to pieces in the end. As long as once the warranties run out, it will fall to pieces. Elias, hello. I have a Ford Mondeo Mk5 with this message: P259900A7 PCM, turbocharger, boost control, position sensor, A performance, stuck, high. Any ideas? Normally when we get the turbocharger boost control, it's the solenoids. I've never had, you know the great big diaphragm unit that's electrical as well that goes on your turbocharger. I've never had one of them go wrong. It's normally that there's 2 solenoids. One's bolted to the side of your fuel filter housing, and there's another little one underneath, and there's loads of vacuum pipes on it. I would personally, to start with, I would check the vacuum pipes. None of them are off or anything like that. You might not even notice anything, but if the vacuum pipes are off, normally you'll lose a bit, you'll lose power. But if the solenoids go faulty, everything might appear to be okay, but they're not giving the turbocharger the boost it needs. So they will fling up a turbocharger boost control code, and some of these codes can be a bit sort of like deceptive as exactly what they mean. But I would definitely check them to all the vacuum pipes. If it's possible, if you do suspect the solenoids, try and access a couple second-hand ones from a scrapyard maybe, because they're quite expensive. I think you have to buy the solenoids with all the pipes on them, and go from there, and check all your boost pipes as well, obviously. So sometimes on these cars, you can have one particular thing go wrong, which could throw up a whole host of different codes, which can not make a lot of sense. And you could be sort of like looking at things that are nothing wrong with them. So start off with your vacuum pipes and everything. Underneath your throttle housing, there's all your vacuum pipes and everything. Sometimes the vacuum pipes could get broken or split or come off out of place off one of the pipes, off one of their connections. So I'll definitely look at them first. But yeah, and I'd clear the code as well and see if it comes back, how quick it comes back. Hello, Mr. K. Jones. How are you doing? Well, I'm doing okay. I'm about to crack the Jack Daniels out in a minute. Please, can I ask, Focus 1.6 diesel, if driving on motorway every day, whilst difference will it make for diesel engine? Will it be okay, or it needs any special maintenance? Oh, well, generally speaking, if you're driving down the motorway, that's probably good, because the engine isn't really doing that much, is it? I mean, diesel engines, they work a lot harder than petrols, but they last a lot longer, if you see what I mean. And a diesel engine going down the motorway is pretty good. It probably likes the motorway. At least whatever year that is, I should assume it's got a diesel particulate filter on it. It will like that because it'll be able to do regens more easily when it's actually doing some speed. I've known of some cars that like Jeep, there's a particular Jeep, I think it was an old RAV4 or something, diesel one. You had to be doing like 60 miles an hour or above for a certain distance for it to actually do a regen. So if you're driving around town in a diesel all the time, I mean, this doesn't really apply to, well, it shouldn't apply to most of the real late diesels. They should regen even if you're driving around town. But some people who do a lot of stop-start driving and don't really get the engine warm, they don't regen properly. They don't regen the DPF, so that the DPF on your exhaust gets sooted up and blocked up. And that's what we had a few weeks ago on that old Audi A1. The DPF was block solid. And it's probably just down to, I don't know if it had something to do with petrol being put in the car, but it was sort of like it was a month later when it started playing up and it got blocked. So I assume it's a lot of driving around town and actually not getting the engine warm enough. So motorway driving is pretty good. It is for most cars anyway. Sprogert. Hello. I'm a mechanic and a neighbour has asked me to replace his timing belt on his 2018 Mk5 diesel Mondeo. Which belt kit would you recommend? I would get the Ford kit. Personally, I would get the kit from Ford. I know that Gates kits are good, but I always use Gates kits on anything else. But on these Mondeos, I always use the kit that come from Ford. And the reason being is because I've never had a problem with them. They just fit and everything is dead right. I got a Gates kit once, and the water pump that come with it, the metal gasket was missing, which was a bit bizarre. And I had somebody else get a Gates kit and fit it. And a couple of weeks later, I had to take it off again because the water pump was leaking. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, I think I'll just stick to getting the Ford kit. And for the extra money, you're getting genuine parts. You've got to remember, this is a very expensive car you've got. So for whatever extra it costs you to buy the Ford timing belt kit and water pump, it's worth it. Just get the genuine parts for it. It's peace of mind. Hello, Paul. My Audi failed the MOT on emissions. It was just out of range. I've changed oil and filters, used Redex and a similar product to clean. Next, I will change the spark plugs. No code stored either. Oh, when you say your car's failed its MOT on emissions, is that Oh, it's petrol. Well, you'd have to see the emission sheet that you get from the MOT station. Like, is it just the CO, the carbon? Is it just the carbon monoxide that's too high? I think on these cars, they've got to be below 0.20. Is it the hydrocarbons that are high, or is it the lambda that's out of range? Because remember, these cars should have a lambda of 1, but if the lambda's out, it could be pointing towards something else. If it's just the CO that's a bit too high, then that points towards a dead cat. If everything else is in limits, so it'd be interesting to see what the emission sheet shows. Hi, Paul. The Audi runs fine. Just done a 300-mile return trip from Bristol at the weekend. Took car for MOT on the 7th of March and failed miserably. What else to look for? It's a petrol 1.4 TFSI 2017. Yeah, you'd need to see the emission sheet. That's the problem. The emission sheet that you get from the MOT station tells a story because they will take readings of your carbon monoxide, your hydrocarbons, which is your unburned fuel, and your lambda, which is your air fuel ratio. And if any of them are out of their limits, it is an indication to what could be the problem. But like I say, but generally speaking, if it's just the CO that's out, like it should be 0.20%. If it's like 0.5%, then that just points towards a dead cat, rather than maybe a lambda sensor that's faulty or something else that could be at fault. So really need to see the emission sheet. Hello, Sam. How are you? Hope you're all well. Don't forget the JD. Good thinking. I was going to, the whole purpose of tonight was just to tell a little Jackanory, because it's that kind of, well, it's the problem. I've had this, I mentioned this last week. I had a Mk5 Mondeo, 2-litre diesel. This is what it's all about. And I'm going to tell you the little story, because last week when I mentioned it, we hadn't come to a conclusion, but we have now. The car is fixed and it's all good again. So I'm going to run you through. I'm going to run you through this little story so you can see just how dramatic an E.C.U fault can actually cause an engine. And the old Jack Daniels is getting a bit low now. So also need some ice. Mustn't forget the ice. I could actually just go outside and scoop some snow up off the grass. Right, that's it. This is what you need on a cold winter's night, even though we're in March. You need a good old whiskey to warm yourself up. Remember, life is short. So every day we have a live stream is another excuse to have a glass of whiskey. Cheers. Right, I'll carry on. I'll answer a couple questions and then I'm going to go into this little story. Good show, Alan. Excellent channel. Well, thank you very much, Paul. You know, Wednesday night is becoming a thing. I quite like Wednesday nights. I wouldn't be doing nothing else really. In fact, I don't get much time after I finish work. I come home every night. I make dinner. I clean the house, do all the chores and all that. And it's usually by about this time, 8 o'clock in the evening, that I get to sit down and probably watch the news or something like that. And by which time I finally wind myself off the settee, I'm ready for bed. So this is probably why I'm about 6 months behind on the comments I need to answer. So I will get around to it eventually. I'll probably have to set a whole day aside to sort of like catch up, but I'm getting there. I will get there. Hello, Finn. Good evening to you. Good evening to everyone. Mr. Dave, hello. Good evening. Good evening to you as well, Mr. Dave. Have a drink. I hope you've got your Beck's beer or your JD whiskey, Southern Comfort. I went into the tapas bar a while back in town, and my mate I was with, because I ordered a Southern Comfort, and he goes, what's the best drink to have, Southern Comfort or Jack Daniels? And she goes, well, Southern Comfort's an old man's drink. If you have the Jack Daniels, it's trending. So I thought, well, the next one I'll have a Jack Daniels. Although I do like a bit of Southern Comfort though. Anyway, hello, Paul. Hope you've had a great week. Well, it's a cold week. No, it's been okay actually. At the moment, we've got all the bloody taxis. Well, quite a few of them having to go for their tests. So it's checking them all over, trying to rebuild half of them that needs, and we're changing a lot of the front suspension arms now because the rear bushes are completely knackered. If I get the next one in that needs them bushes, I know I've changed an arm before on a video, but I'll show you how to check them rear bushes really easily without even jacking the car up. So I'll probably use one of them shorts videos for doing that. Hello, John. Good evening to you. How are you doing? William, hello. Good evening, folks. And Phil, hello. Hope the form is good. Everything is good. Everything is good apart from this little sucker, this engine control unit off a Mk5 Mondeo 2-litre diesel. Notice they come with a sticker on them, as they all do. I'll come to that later. Right, I'm going to have to go through this story, okay? Because otherwise we'll never get there. Basically, a number of weeks ago, I can't remember when, it's been a little while, it's probably been about nearly a month now, we had a taxi come in. It was running on 3 cylinders. I had the misfortune to look at this car, okay? So I plugged the scanner in to the car to check the E.C.U codes, and it had cylinder contribution balance number, I think it was number 2 cylinder. So I thought, and also it had another code in it. It had exhaust camshaft over advanced. So I thought, that's a bit interesting. That sounds like the timing's out, the valve timing's out. But anyway, I thought, well, normally when we've got a cylinder out, it's an injector that's the problem. So I've got a spare injector. So I take number 2 injector out of the engine. I put another injector in. I actually programmed it in the 20-digit code with it using our scanner, and I started the car up. It was still running on 3 cylinders. So I thought, that's interesting. So on these cars, these particular engines, if you've got the engine running, say it's running around about 850 RPM or whatever they run at, a tick over. If you pull the individual wires one at a time off the diesel injectors, the engine will sort of like, the revs will drop down, it'll start going like that. And then the E.C.U will kick in and take over, and it will raise the idle speed up. So I pull the injectors off, the injector wires off each injector one by one. And when I get to number 2 injector, which is the one I know there's a problem with, I pull the wire off the injector and nothing happens for a couple seconds, and then the engine raises up. So I push the plug back onto the injector, and the engine revs go back to normal, even though it's sort of like not running smooth because it's only running on 3 cylinders. That tells me that the wiring on them injectors is working. So because when you pull the wiring plug off the injector and the idle speed goes up, that's the E.C.U trying to compensate for the loss, for knowing that them wires there's a break in the wires because you've disconnected the injector. So by pushing the injector plug back on, it's just chugging but ticking over a bit rough. So I'm like, well, hang on. So the injector on number 2 cylinder is not faulty. The wiring is okay. So what else could it be? So I get my diesel compression tester out. I take the injector out again, and I put my compression tester and bolt it down onto number 2 cylinder and do a compression test in that cylinder. And guess what? There is absolute zero compression in that cylinder. And I thought to myself, the code that's got me is the one that says exhaust camshaft timing over advanced. I'm thinking to myself, the cam belt must be out. The camshaft timing must be out. The belt's been put on. Whoever put the last belt on has put it on a bit out or something like that. And that's what's caused it. I should think what's happened. The trouble is I can't prove this because I'll tell you in a minute. I reckon a hole has been burnt down the piston skirt in number 2 cylinder, and that's why it's lost compression. So anyway, what we basically had to do after that was we were really busy. So I was already changing an engine in one of these cars because we've had quite a few of these engines go wrong for various other reasons, just being worn out, some of them. This particular car, we sent it down to another garage, down to our other garage to have it replaced. So I didn't get to change the engine. So they replaced the engine down the other garage, and then the car came back up to me to check the car over once it was all up and running again with another second-hand engine in it. So I'm checking the engine. It's all running fine again now. But I plugged my diagnostic scanner into this car again. By the way, from the get-go, when the car first came in, there was no engine management lights on, not at all. And when the car come back with the reconditioned engine or the second-hand engine fitted in it, there was no engine lights on at all. But I plugged the scanner in anyway, just to read any codes that might be in it. And that camshaft, exhaust camshaft over advanced, was still there in the E.C.U. And I thought, that's probably there from the old engine. So I cleared the code, started the engine up again, and the code comes straight back. And I thought, what the hell? This is a bit odd. Now, the particular engine that was fitted in this taxi, I put it together with the timing belt, new clutch, new flywheel, this, that, and the other we put on it, okay, so it's ready to go in. And I sent the engine and the car down to the other garage for them to fit it all because I was too busy. I knew that the cam belt timing was absolutely spot on. I had my pin in the crankshaft and the camshaft, and I knew that everything was cam belt wise was absolutely bang on. I knew it wasn't out. And for that code to be still there was ringing alarm bells to me, because I'm thinking this exact code was there on the old engine and it's still here with a new engine fitted. And I thought, do you know what? If I let this taxi go back on the road, it's going to be back in I don't know how long with another blown engine. It's going to put another hole down the side of the piston skirt and destroy the engine. And these engines, we can't really get them fixed up. No one wants to touch them. It's kind of like you have to throw the engine away. If you've damaged the actual piston bore or anything like that, or the big end shells, main bearing shells, no one wants to, or the crankshaft is damaged, the engine places don't want to touch them. So you'd have to get another engine, basically. So anyway, I thought to myself, I can't let this car go back on the road. So I'm thinking to myself, do I recheck the camshaft timing, the cam belt timing? I'm thinking, no. Do you know what? I'm not going to check it because I know it's right. I'll be wasting my time. So I decided to just drive this car back and forwards to home. And there's a few other things that sort of like popped up on this car. If I'm driving it, normally you wouldn't notice anything wrong with it. It absolutely drove lovely. No engine management lights, no nothing, apart from this exhaust camshaft over advanced code in the E.C.U. that absolutely will not go away. So I'm driving the car, and occasionally, if I come to a junction and I let my foot off the clutch, for some goddamn reason, the stop-start system on this car sometimes just cuts in randomly and the engine will stop. And I'm thinking, that's okay, that's just the stop-start working. But when I put my foot back on the clutch, the engine should just fire straight back up, but it doesn't. The engine would crank over 6 or 7 times, like boom, 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 and then it would go. Then it would fire up. And that was a bit concerning. And when I rechecked the codes in the E.C.U., another code had come up. And it was camshaft position sensor, implausible signal. And if I cleared that code, it would go away and then it would come back again every time the stop-start cut in. which was a bit odd. And it's where engine had to spin over like 6 or 7 times for it to start up again. I thought that's a little bit strange. I replaced the camshaft position sensor twice just to make sure, and it was still doing it. So I've got a camshaft position sensor fault, keeps coming up every time that stop-start decides to work. And I've got this exhaust camshaft over advanced code, which just won't go away anyway. So I thought to myself, without going into any sort of like great detail, what have we got here? It's not the camshaft sensor. You've got the wiring loom, which comes off the engine E.C.U. and goes to pretty much all the sensors on the engine. There's a separate wiring loom on the engine, which goes from your starter motor alternator and that and goes to the fuse box. But the main wiring loom, which goes to your engine E.C.U. bolted on your side, your driver's side wing, goes to all the electrics basically on that engine. And I thought the wiring's okay, because I checked the wires from the camshaft position sensors to the E.C.U. and they're fine. I knew they were fine anyway. And the exhaust camshaft over advanced code, I didn't really know about that, but I'm thinking, what could it be? It can only be that it can either be the timing out, or it can be something with the E.C.U. And I thought normally if you put a cam belt on one of these cars and you get the valve timing out, it will throw up a crankshaft camshaft correlation code, but this wasn't. So I'm thinking this is a really strange. So you know what I've done? I just took a chance here, and I went on eBay. I got a second-hand E.C.U. You have to get that little label on the E.C.U. with all the numbers on it. You have to make sure that they're absolutely spot on. There's same numbers, absolutely it's the same numbers, because there's a lot of variations of them E.C.U.s. I got a second-hand E.C.U. off eBay for about, I don't know, 80, 90 quid, whatever it was. I took the car down to TC Harrison in Huntingdon, gave them the E.C.U. off eBay, and I said, can you program this second-hand E.C.U. to this car? And they said, yep, no problem. They'd done it in sort of like half a morning. The car was back. And you know what? I drove the car from TC Harrison back to Stukely, well, Alconbury. I plugged the scanner straight in, and I read the E.C.U. codes, and there were no codes in it. No codes whatsoever. So just to make bloody sure, I went for a good old run in that car. No codes come back in it. Which means that exhaust camshaft over advanced code was completely gone. And also, when I at the weekend, when I come to a stop in this car, the stop start worked, and I thought, uh-oh, here we go. And as I put my foot back on the clutch, the engine cranked over, and it must have been half a revolution of the engine, and it fired up. And I subsequently plugged the scanner back in again to check for any camshaft position sensor codes, and there were none. So all the codes are completely gone. The car's running perfectly fine now, no problems. So that says to me that that engine E.C.U., that for whatever reason has just gone faulty, and it has created some kind of, I don't know how exactly what it's done, but it's obviously altering the fueling of the injectors to fire when they're not supposed to fire, or God knows what, because it's trying to say to itself that the exhaust camshaft is over advanced. And you know, when a diesel, like you go back to the days of the old rotary pumps and all that, when you could adjust, you could time the pumps up and everything. You could make them sort of like advance them a bit, which would make them go a lot quicker and that. And you could retard the pumps, and you put DTIs in the back, so you could set them all up. If the pump timings used to be out significantly, you can burn holes in your pistons on a diesel. You can do a lot of damage. As far as valves go in these diesel engines, I've never seen any valve damage to a diesel. It's always been piston related, if the engines aren't running right or not set up right. And obviously, because on these modern engines, there's no adjustments on them. There's no high pressure fuel pumps that you can do any adjustments on. It's all done electronically through these boxes. And if these go wrong, that is the kind of result you can get. It's like that last one. We had an E.C.U just take a dump and it killed all 4 injectors dead. And it's sort of like, that was an absolute nightmare. But that's it. That's what I wanted to say. I'll maybe talk a bit more about it in a minute, but I'll better answer a few comments. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't let that car go back out. I could have just said sod it and, you know, put it back on the road. And I reckon if I'd have left it, that'd be back in a few months' time with another dead engine, with another, that would have done that another cylinder in. It would have burnt a hole down the side of the piston. So it pays not to. The problem is that in the very first place, nobody would have known because there was no engine management. When the car originally came in, there was no engine management lights on, even though it was running on 3 cylinders. So it was it's a bit odd. And the car, I guess the car was definitely driving fine with that E.C.U fault. So you wouldn't really know anything was wrong. So bit of a sod of a problem that was. Milan, hello. From a snowy Stafford. Yeah, it's snowy here as well. It is still snowing. It's in actual fact, the snow's almost coming sideways with the wind. But yeah, it's definitely settled a bit. Petrol head, hello. I currently have issues with a 2012. Oh dear. Well, it depends what your issues are. Let's hope it's not a Jonah. MSJ Cars, hello. I love my white Mondeo Vignale estate with panoramic roof. Need power shift service. Ouch. Well, you can always do it yourself. It's expensive to buy the kit though, isn't it? The oil in that. They certainly know how to charge for it. But yeah, it's something you've got to do though. The trouble is, it's sort of like quite low mileage intervals. You've got to change, what's it, every 30,000 miles or something? Yeah, it soon adds up, especially if you do a lot of miles. Ancient Grey Bear, hello. I've not heard your channel here before. It's Baltic in Cork, Ireland too. Oh, I got a mug of tea and a few hobnobs, so I'm here for a while. Well, that's it. But mind you shouldn't have put the tea down and get the beer out. It's Wednesday night. You got to have a drink or get a whiskey. I used to be a great tea drinker, but you know, I gave the tea up. I gave the tea up for Jack Daniels. Hello, John. Winter is still hanging. It bloody certainly is. It's flip. The trouble is, when you're like at where I work, it's like you've got the heater on and you're constantly in, out, all flipping day long. Get from the hot, cold, and then you get bloody headaches through it. That's why I'm talking a lot tonight, so I'm not thinking about my headache. Hello, Sean. Good evening to you. Chopsy boy, wastegate. Yes, turbo wastegate. Gee, that's the Mk5 Mondeo. I've not had a turbo wastegate problem yet. Not one. And it's like 100 taxis, and they're all, 300,000. Not all of them, but a lot of them are over 300,000. Some are getting close to 400,000 miles. Not had the turbo wastegate or one of them actuators go wrong yet. I know on like Volkswagens they can be a bit of a pain, but on these Mondeos they've been very, very reliable. Everything I've had where it's turbo related, it's been them bloody solenoids, turbo boost control solenoid. or the vacuum piping that's got a split in it or something like that. Hello, Mr. Mondo. How's you? The YouTube subscribe bell worked tonight. Had to unsub and resub for this malarkey. Have a good night. Beware of white stuff coming. Keep warm. Yeah, well, all I've got to say is don't eat yellow snow. Anyway, Mondo, good evening to you. Yes, I've got the white stuff outside as well. I hope it's not going to be here for long because it's flipping March now. I thought it's supposed to be nearly spring, isn't it? It's gone back to like colder than flipping January. Hello, Dan. Live ye stream nation. Went Newcastle, back Manchester today. No snow anywhere yet where I've been. Oh, it's normally like more up north, isn't it? I mean, I'm further down, so in East Anglia. So, yeah, it's been sort of like, it's been light, feathery snow all day, like a bit of slush. But it's only sort of like after 5 o'clock, it started really coming down a bit more, a bit heavy. And it's all settled on all the roofs now. So I'm wondering what it's going to be like in the morning. I should think it's a flash in the pan, but mind you, it's nice to see a little bit of snow once a year. Stephen, loving the titanium after 1 week. Well impressed. I do miss Jonah. Love all your videos. Funny, informative. Oh, JD. Yes, it's JD time. Yes. Titanium. That's their nice, well-equipped cars. It's probably one of them cars that's got everything in it you need. Heated seats, heated windscreen. Yep. It's got all the toys, I bet. How's Monica? She's fine, as far as I know. She's doing her office job. Yeah, I haven't really had much of I haven't really had anything to make any videos lately. Nothing interesting, nothing all the time to actually do it. So I'm always on the lookout to try and actually find something to talk about. So when I get the opportunity, I'll try and get a Monica scene in it as well. So we'll see how it goes. Stefan, can I ask Mark 4 question? I have oil leak from the 2-litre TDCI valve gasket cover. Do I have to look for genuine gasket with O-rings for the intake manifold or aftermarket? To be honest with you, I don't think it would matter, even if you got aftermarket ones. I know what the O-rings you're talking about. What I would do is, though, I'd get a can of silicone spray and spray the O-rings, because they can be a bit of a pain when you put shushing the plastic manifold back over them. It's like they're not the easiest of things to slot in. If you've got some silicone spray on the O-rings, you tend to push the manifold back onto them easy. It's up to you. I don't see any harm in getting aftermarket ones, as long as you put a bit of lubricant on them to make them fit a bit better. But if you're a bit concerned, then this might be worth checking out what the Ford would charge. Then the price might not be that much anyway for a few O-rings. Well, we never know from Ford, though, do you? I know on some of these thermostats, 2 O-rings are like 20 quid. So you might be well to get the aftermarket ones. I'm sure you'll be able to make them fit anyway. Robin, hello. Another one. How is Monica? Yeah, she's doing fine. Yeah, no problems at all. Paul, time to get the long john on, Alan. It's bloody freezing here in Livingston, Scotland. Well, yeah, I can imagine. Scotland, blooming hell. These are these aren't long johns, but this is thermal top. This is what you buy out of Tesco's that you put on, then you put your top over it. So this is actually, you know, the thermals. I just can't bother to take it off. I couldn't even be bothered to get dressed tonight. I just thought I'd put a like thermal top on, which I've been wearing all day, and a pair of jeans. And I've got the thermal bottoms anyway. I don't wear the whole long johns that like a bunny suit you jump into. I've got the sort of like they're in two halves. Mark, Jack Daniels with honey is the best. It's quite nice actually. I tend to get on a bit. It's a bit easier on your throat than the standard Jack Daniels, unless you're a hardened drinker. Yeah, as long as you don't, it's a little bit sweet, but I mean, it goes down nice and smoothly, especially on a cold night like this, even with the ice cubes. Truth Reporter, keep the oil clean. Well, yeah, you have to keep your oil clean. Sam, we have in the sales garage a Mark IV Mondeo with an EGR fault code P0404 EGR circuit range or performance. Yeah, I'd say that's the EGR valve. Mark IV, yeah, but is that the one? Is that the EGR? Is that the Mark IV or the Mark 4.5? Because the Mark IV, the earlier ones, they had the EGR at the back of the engine, which were a bit of a sod to get to. Well, they're all a bitch to get to, aren't they? And the Mark 4.5, the 2-litre diesels, they have the EGR at the front underneath the inlet manifold, which are still tricky to get off. But yeah, that'll be an EGR itself. I can pretty much guarantee that'll be the valve itself. Same car, P2288. Yes, the EGRs are always going wrong. You know what? They're just an absolute pain. You're better off without them. They're just nothing but something that's going to inevitably go wrong. Man with P2599, try the turbo boost solenoid. Yeah, I'll definitely go for solenoids first. They do go wrong. Robin, my man truck blocks up some time, so it has to sit still, revving its guts out for 45 minutes. Blimey. Yeah, they take about that long, don't they? I mean, most regens a lot, good 40 minutes at least, aren't they? I've noticed on the Mondeo taxis, the RPM only sits at about 3,000, and as long as the engine's nice and, you know, it's nothing wrong with the actual engine itself, or hasn't got a loose timing chain, they tend to do it all okay, no problem. I always remember, I'm pretty sure it was a Vauxhall. It was a Vauxhall of some kind, and we started to do a regen. It was as funny as hell. We were doing a regen, and the revs went up to 3,500, whatever they did, for, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. It was standing there revving for. And then all of a sudden, the revs went down back to idle, but it was still doing the regen. So we left our scanner connected up to the car, and then the revs just went up again. And we thought, oh, it's just making the revs go up again. But the revs just went through the roof. It revved like flat out, absolutely flat out. And we thought, this isn't right. And switched the ignition off. And of course, it just carried on running. So my mate jumped in the car, slammed it into like gear, and put his foot on the brake and had to stall the engine. And when we tried to start the engine again, it was lock solid. It wouldn't start. It would just like clonk, clonk like that. Like the engine is seized up. So we pushed the car into the corner and left it there all weekend. And then when my mate come, he was going to fix the car at the top garage. He come down with a tow bar because he's going to tow the car away. And I said to him, "Oh, here's the keys. Why don't you just start it up? It's probably unseized itself by now." And I was only joking, but he tried the key anyway, and it just fired up. It actually fired up, and he drove the car off. And you know what? That car never did come back. So it was as right as rain. We thought the engine was seized. That was a stroke of luck. It goes to show, when you're doing a regen, there are sometimes things can go horribly wrong. So just bear that in mind. Doing a DPF regen, normally most of the time, as long as everything's fine, it's okay. But there is going to be, from time to time, something goes wrong, and it usually doesn't end very well. Khalid, hello. SKF or SNR belt kits. These have the best bearings, and it's the bearings that are most important. But like anything, buy the metal gasket separately for a few quid. I totally agree with the metal gasket. I like the metal gaskets. They seem to work very well. Yeah. I haven't used, I mean, these belt kits I would use I mean, we normally get gates anyway, that's what we're given. But these other belt kits, I should think they're all pretty good. I mean, it's like when you get a car that's done a few years old, like, I don't know, 2012 model car, I wouldn't think twice about putting one of these belt kits on it. But it's just that on the taxis, we're so used to putting the Ford kits on it that we just stick to the Ford kits now. And I don't think the price is that much more than what you'd get. I mean, it is obviously, I don't know, 50, 60 pound more. But I just, it depends what you want to spend at the end of the day. If you've got a brand new car that's done its first cam belt change, I'd probably rather stick to the genuine parts. So it's whatever you feel's best. Zadank, rain here today. Yeah, I bet it's cold rain, isn't it? You can't go for a shower today in the rain. WWE Classic, hello. I keep getting a P2000 code. I've had both lambda sensors changed. Keep saying knock sensor below. I'm having auto transmission oil changed in Friday. What else could it be? I always heard that was I know it relates to your HEGO sensors on your DPF, but we were originally told from someone at Ford that it was a software issue. It doesn't seem to cause any problems though, does it? Doesn't make the engine run any different. Still runs the same. It just annoyingly brings the engine management light on. I haven't really got an answer to that one. But like I say, I heard it was a software issue. We just used to, I mean, we had these problems when the cars were still new. You know, they were still under warranty. They were bringing up this code. And we took them to Ford and they just switched the light off and said, don't worry about it. So annoyingly, once the code comes on, it's sort of like you switch the light off and leave it. So they they just seem to come on randomly. And a lot of the cars we've had, you'll get the code up, you'll clear the code, and it'll be 6 months before it comes back on again. So I don't really know. It might be worth having a word or looking on a Ford forum and see if there's I haven't looked at this myself actually, but there could be a software update or something like that for your car, which might solve the problem. But as far as I'm aware at the minute, there isn't really a cure for that code. But it's not a code that's actually causing the problem. Lassie? Have you ever worked on the latest model Transit 2-litre diesel, 170 horsepower with wet timing belts? We have about 120 of those in our fleet. Toyota material handling Denmark, and the belts tend to snap. We have got some of them Transits. Yes, there's about 4 of them with the wet belts in them. I actually went through this a couple of weeks back. I was talking about it because Ford brought out a special bulletin or special notice to have some of these recalled to check the belts because of oil dilution. I've heard a lot of horror stories about these belts breaking or shedding their teeth and God only knows what. The particular Transit we've got, which has done 240,000 miles, has just had its second wet belts fitted to it, and it's never been a problem, although the oil pickup was quite contaminated with bits of mush, what you'd probably think would probably be off the belt. So I should think it's not them belts are sort of like they're not doing any good to the engine, and if you get a severe case, you get too much particles, fiber particles come off them belts and get stuck in your oil pump pickup. You could block your oil way. So, but yeah, I haven't had any horror stories with them belts myself, but I've heard plenty of stories. So I don't like wet belts. I don't like them whatsoever. I don't see why they couldn't have just fitted a chain. It would have been, once the chain's in there, if it was a decent enough chain, you would have never had to touch it. And we'd have a lot of engines that wouldn't be blown up now. And they're not a 5-minute job to change them belts either. They're quite a big job, especially when you get a Transit that's done a lot of miles and nothing wants to come undone. They're a right pain. Love your videos, very helpful. Are you able to do my power shift oil change on my 2017 Mondeo? It's not been done yet, but car has only done 30k. Yeah, it's not a problem. If we are not able to do it ourselves, we've got 2 garages, you see. So it's one of the 2 garages. If you booked it in with me, if I didn't do it, the other garage would do it. And the old boy down there, he does quite a few of them anyway. So it's not a problem. It's something we've done quite a few of. So, yeah, that's easy enough. You just have to leave us a comment or something or phone the garage up. It's I'm sure you can get the number off the garage. It's all over my channel, all over the place in a load of the videos. So, yeah. But, yeah, I could do that. No problem at all. Good evening, Alan. I currently have issue with a Mk5. What's that? 1.6 Mondeo. It's a taxi, and I've just put a second-hand engine with 77k in it. The engine ran fine in the donor vehicle, but now have a diesel knock. I would Mk5 1.6. I'm just wondering, because I'm not really that familiar with 1.6 engines, but I would say you've probably got to program your diesel injectors. In some cases, they can make a hell of a difference. Like a lot of these diesel injectors, they've got a 20-digit code on the injectors, and you have to program each of them injectors into your E.C.U. And I've had this before where there was a point I never used, on the 2 litres, I never used to program them. Until one particular day, I fitted a couple of injectors and the engine was knocking like hell. And I thought, flipping heck, I can't let this car go out like this. It really sounded bad. And I thought, what the hell can I do? These are new injectors. So I got the scanner, plugged the scanner into the diagnostic port. I programmed all the injectors into the E.C.U. and the knocking went. It was gone. I know a lot of injectors, if they're not programmed to the E.C.U., they can cause all kinds of noises and God only knows what. A lot of the time you'll fit injectors and you fitted another engine, maybe with injectors in it, and you'll start it up and drive it and everything will be fine. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you actually have to program them injectors. So that's what I'd be looking at to start with. And if it weren't that, I'd be looking at the cam belt timing. I'll recheck that, make sure that's spot on. Because that's pretty much 2 of the main things you can really do, because there's not really much else you can do on these engines as long as everything else is okay. If everything is connected up right, then there's no real adjustments anymore, is there? Everything's electronic. I've swapped the injectors. What are you using? The original injectors in the new engine? I'd still reprogram them. I'll still reprogram them anyway, just to check. Because it's a different engine, I would definitely check. Get a diagnostic tool and get them reprogrammed in anyway. I remember when I bought my Vito van, the engine was sort of like noisy, and I thought there's something not right here. And at the time, it was still under warranty. And I took it back to Mercedes, and they programmed the injectors. They were the original injectors, and it was nice and quiet after that. Yeah, it can make a big difference. Bouncing Yellow Skull, hello, how are you? Doing a timing belt should be a night of passage. I now feel like a complete man. Mondeo. Yes, you've finally successfully completed your timing belt replacement. That's it's a good feeling when you know that you've actually done something and you've got it right and everything's great and nothing's gone wrong, and it's something like you weren't really sure about to start with before you actually started doing the job, but you've gone through it, got it all done, and you're sort of like, yes. Plus the bonus is you haven't had to take it to a garage and pay through the nose to have it done. So you've saved yourself a shed load of money. So excellent. Well done. Now you'll have everybody asking you, can you do theirs? Now you can make a few quid doing them. But yeah, it's just that the only really sort of like iffy bit is getting that crankshaft bolt out. So if you're not sure, like you've done, get some heat on it. So that will come out, because you don't want to damage the threads in the crankshaft or break the bolt. Otherwise, you're in a whole world of crap. But yeah, excellent. Nice to see you get it done. Barry, hello. Phoned my Ford dealer to ask at what mileage should the cam belt be changed. Our 2016 Transit Connect van. They said 150,000 miles. Another one of our went at 110,000, and the cost £1,800 to fix. Oh my God! 2016 Transit Connect van. I wonder what belt that's got on it. That's a lot of flipping money. You'd have to. I'm not too sure about that one. You'd have to, if you leave your registration number in the comments below. If I get to it, I'll check it out on Auto Data to see what belt it's got on it, and then try and figure out why it's justifying £1,800. Because that does seem a bit on the expensive side. I can understand a cam belt in this day and age, like, I don't know, if I take a Mark 5 Mondeo, you know, it could cost you the best part of £600 at a garage to have that done. But £1,800, it seems a bit on the flipping steep side. So yeah, leave your reg in the link in the description below or in the comments below, and I'll check it out on Auto Data. Hello, Mark. How's things? Mark 4 Mondeo parking sensor not working front and rear. Oh dear. Well, they've got a control box, haven't they, somewhere? I think it's in the back of the car somewhere. That could be up the chute. Yeah. You'd have to get some diagnostics done on that. I know these sensors do pack up individually, but I can't see them all packing up. You know, as I say, it's more a control unit problem there. Camille, I have a solution for my Mondeo Mark 5 where I had problem with rising oil level. after changing, I have a solution for my Mondeo Mk5 where I had a problem with rising oil level. I have a solution to that as well, but I'm not going to say it here on YouTube. Paul behind Paul, hello. Can the cat be cleaned? No. If you've got a catalytic converter on a petrol car and it's failed the MOT because the what is it, lithium and platinum or whatever goes into that honeycomb inside that exhaust on that cat. When them precious metals have deteriorated to the point they're not working anymore, they're not converting the carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide, they're dead. That's it. That's the end of it. They're no good. There's nothing you can do to bring them back. And you notice a lot of these cats, when they get to the point where they're not working very well anymore, they've got a bit of a pungent smell to them. You would say, oh, that car smells a bit catty because they've got this really strange smell coming out of the exhaust. It's a dying cat. That's what it is. No, you have to get another cat for it. Problem is, you can get a lot of aftermarket cats, but you really need to get an OE quality cat, original quality cat, because I know going to a main dealer is going to cost you a fortune, but you can get an aftermarket one that's sort of like up to standard, because a lot of these very, very cheap cats are no good anyway, and they'll be lucky to get through their first MOT test. So I know it's expensive, but what can you do? Love the channel, and always a pleasure to watch. Well, thank you, Liam. That's very nice of you. I do try to do a little bit of entertainment. I try to be entertaining when I make videos, but they're getting a bit boring these days. I need to sort of like ramp it up a little bit, get a bit of fun going on. Sickly. Southern Comfort makes you forget tomorrow. I used to like Southern Comfort, but it's not a lot different to the Jack Daniel's Honey, really. Fault B1 B5412 function LED circuit, short to battery, current DTC. Switch has power. Have you had this fault? Would you replace the switch? No, I've never seen that fault code before. No, no, it's one of them things you'd have to sort of like get someone to look into that. LED circuit, short to battery. Yeah, I'll be checking the wiring. I'll be checking any relevant wiring that you can get to first. It's going to be one of them. Griffin, all the way from snowy Finland. Well, it's snowing here as well in bloody snowy England. It's still coming down. Very light though. Although I should think it's nowhere near as much snow as you get over there. I do like to see a bit of snow once a year, and I don't think we've had any this year. Well, not here we haven't. Probably had about a few flecks come down. This is about as much as it's come down today. Well, this year it has. I was hoping for a white Christmas. We were close this year, but it never happened. So we're getting it now in March. Just change the fuel filter with a Ford part. Do you use Ford filters or other makes like MAN? For the taxis, we'll use genuine Ford filters, but any other car that comes in, I'll use any make. Don't really mind. They all seem to work just as well. I don't really mind what I use in the way of filters. So yeah, put anything on it. Most of these filters you buy these days, they're pretty good anyway. They do the job. If you're very meticulous and concerned, you'll get the genuine parts. If you ain't that worried, you want to save a few quid, just get the aftermarket parts. And I know you mainly deal with diesels, but I have a ST150 Mark 6 Fiesta 2 litre petrol that just sneaked through the emissions test. Could it be O2 sensor or cat problems? Didn't have any codes. Well, once again, it's a case of when you say it's just sneaked through, you have to look at the emission sheet that the MOT test station gives you. Because there's when they test these catalytic converters and do this emission test, they have a screen with a load of figures on it, which might not make a lot of sense, but there's a few things you need to be looking at. HC, which is hydrocarbons, which is unburnt fuel. You want to be seeing how much hydrocarbons there are. If it's below 200, which it should be to pass, then that's pretty good. You also want to be looking at the CO. It should be below 0.20. They call it a basic emissions test on a modern car. It's like if it's below 0.20, it will pass the test. If it's above 0.20, then it will fail the test. Then you have to go into a full cat test. There's also the lambda, which is more looking at your HEGO sensors or lambda sensors. A lambda of 1 is what it should be. If the lambda is miles out one way or another, it's either going to make it too rich or too lean. But by looking at the emission sheet that the MOT test station gives you, will give you an indication of what could be wrong. And in most cases, as long as everything's working perfectly well on the car, if it's just the CO that's a bit on the high side, then that's the sign of an aging catalyst or dying cat. So the real answer is to replace the cat. So, but obviously, if something like the lambda was miles out, it can make the mixture far too rich. So the E.C.U will be trying to richen the mixture up, which can throw your emissions out and make them way out of sync or where they should be. So there's lots of things that can go wrong, but that sheet they give you from the test station will be a good piece of evidence or good clue as to what's wrong. So that's what you need to look at. And anyone who can look at that sheet should be able to tell you, if you go to the MOT station or ask them, they should be able to tell you on that sheet exactly what's wrong or what's causing your emissions to be a bit out or a bit high. Hi, Alan, I've just watched your videos on thermostat Mk5 Mondeo 2 litre diesel. I purchased the pipe as well as the 2 O-rings, just as well as the old pipe broke inside both ends. Oh, when you say the pipe, well, you've got the 2 O-rings go onto a metal pipe that the thermostat pushes onto, housing pushes onto. And the other pipe is the little bleed off pipe, which just tends to snap. So yeah, them O-rings, by the way, they're not cheap, are they? They're about £10 an O-ring. That's a lot of money for an O-ring. Yeah. What I normally do, I use silicone spray once again. When you pull the thermostat housing off the main metal pipe at the back of the engine with the 2 O-rings on it, I spray a bit of silicone spray on them 2 new O-rings, and then you can push it on nice and easily. Otherwise, it can be a struggle to push it on. And be very careful when you pull the thermostat housing off that metal pipe, because sometimes they can be really stuck on, and if you pull too hard, you could pull the pipe out at the back of the water pump. Then you could be in trouble. Then you've got to try and get that back in. So anyway, I don't want to give you nightmares. Yeah, I'm sure it will go perfectly fine. I priced up at local supplies and thermostat was £251. A genuine Ford was 201. Well worth pricing up. Genuine thanks. You'll be surprised sometimes. I know whenever you think about, oh, the dealer's going to sting me and this, that, and the other. Well, no, they normally bloody do, but it's always worth checking the price of a dealer part compared to an aftermarket part, because there will come times when you'll find that the dealer part is actually cheaper than what you can get it as an aftermarket part. I know it sounds bizarre, but it does happen a lot. Yeah. So it's always worth making an extra phone call. And if you can get the dealer part cheaper, or it's negotiable, or it's, you know, neither here nor there, you may as well get the genuine part. Camille, I have solution for my rising oil level in Mondeo Mk5 2015. I have changed both HEGO sensors. Didn't work for me. After that, I changed E.C.U software from newest version to older, and it worked. Yes, that is always a possibility. If that's fixed it, then all well and good. The only way we actually, well, we've fixed a couple, but there've been two different problems. So I mean, but I'm beginning to think on a lot of these cars with the oil level rising, that it's been the DPF itself that's needed to be changed. But I mean, if that's worked for you, if it's E.C.U that's done it, then that's good. It's always, I mean, a lot of these E.C.Us these days, you can get a second-hand one and get it programmed to the car if it comes to it. But in what you've done, change the E.C.U software from newest version to older. Yeah. So that was a bit of a, who done that for you? Did you get the map guy around? No, it's there's these guys go around now, and they can map this out and map that out and do whatever to your E.C.Us. Just saying, you can get rid of problems. Jess, hello. Someone heard you talking in the background and thought it was Gordon Ramsay. You need to change careers. Gordon Ramsay. Bloody hell. Unfortunately, I'm not a chef. Anyway, let me carry on. We have had a Volvo V50 with a wet BCM, which caused quite some fault codes, mostly communication codes. Body control module, yeah. And I bet that's programmed to the car, isn't it? Body control modules, they're another pain in the ass. Everything goes wrong with them. When they go wrong, you've got issues. And it's not so, you can't just swap them over, can you? You've got to get another one or a second-hand one. You've then got to take it to your Ford dealer or someone to get it programmed to the car.
Have you seen outside?
Yep.
So, like, oh my God.
I know. It's been snowing.
In March, though, in March.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
I'm telling you, it's global warming that's doing it. That's why we're so cold all the time. And the climate activists got it wrong. They keep telling us the world's heating up. It's actually cooling down. That's because they're arse about face. You need a haircut, mate.
Of course I do. I might get one before we go on holiday.
Yeah, well, you ought to.
Oh, but it'll stop me getting sunburn on my neck.
No, you can walk around with an umbrella over your head. No, you won't get sunburn.
Just get a hat. Wait, can I get this thing on the
Oh, go on. Bouncing Yellow Skull. £14.99. Well, thank you very much. You keep funding me. You know, I spend it on, I can't say fast women, but I spend it on alcohol. that will buy a bottle of JD, you know, almost. Thank you very much. You're my favourite subscriber tonight. I'll tell you what though, while I'm here, what I do appreciate is just we've just turned 40,000 subscribers on this channel, and although it's taken a flipping long time to get here, most people who probably even visit this channel aren't even subscribed. They just sort of like land here for some reason or other. And the best thing you can do, apart from subscribing, is press that like button so I can get these videos far and wide, because I don't actually think my videos get out very far. That's why I get such a low sort of like count on views sort of thing. I don't think the videos get seen very well. So I don't know how this YouTube algorithm works that well, and I don't even go into it that much. But it's even if you think I'm an asshole, you should press the like button anyway, so I can be a bigger asshole. So anyway, but I want to thank everybody for the 40,000 subs, because it's taken quite a long time to get here, and I'm quite sort of like proud of it that we've got this far. That's why I try and keep things going. That's why I do the live streams. It's sort of like I've got to keep the channel ticking over, even if I can't get a video out because I've got nothing to talk about and I've got nothing to make a video on. At least if I do a live stream, it is something to sort of like keep everybody entertained for at least a few hours. And talking of a few hours, it's 9:15. I don't want to go on for too long tonight, so I'll try and rattle through a couple of these very quickly. But thank you, Bouncing Skull, Bouncing Yellow Skull. You're a star. Camille, after 2,000 kilometers, I can tell that problem disappeared and oil deterioration percentage is not falling the fast. It dropped about 7% after a year. I am finally driving without any worry. That's good, because that when you've got that oil dilution and your oil deterioration keeps coming up, and change oil now and all that, and you know the oil level keeps rising. It's not just the fact the oil level is rising, it's the fact that you don't want the diesel fuel in your oil anyway, because it's gonna, it's not doing your engine any good. It's diluting the oil in your engine, and possibly you could lead to sort of like bearing damage. So it's a good thing you got that sorted. Hello, Mark. I'm doing excellent. I'm going to pour. There's that bloody JD. There it is. There you are, my old mate, Jack Daniels. It's nearly all gone now. I'm going to save that dribble for later. Bit of ice. I was going to have a beer tonight, but it was too cold, so I went for the Jack Daniels instead. What's that? Do you know what? My eyesight ain't that bloody great anymore. On this little computer, the bloody writing's so small I can't see. I should put it on the bigger computer later. Misanthropist. I honestly do not know how you work on these engines daily. They are the most frustrating pieces of scrap I've come across. Keep up the vids now. Very enjoyable. Say hi to M. Yes, I will. Yeah, sometimes they come in the door. I'm like, Jesus flipping Christ. Yes, it does get a bit much. Oh, it's another timing chain rattling. Oh, freaking hell, it's another flipping flywheel rattling. Oh, that's another engine taking a dump. You've just got to sort of like condition yourself, like just think you're here for this amount of hours during the day anyway, so just get the hell on with it. Just don't work too hard. Just work at a steady pace. Don't think about what you're doing. Take your mind somewhere else. Yeah. In actual fact, the worst job on these bloody taxis that I don't like doing is the frigging oil leaks. The ones from the rear main end cap. Bloody amount of work you've got to do to change a 2p bloody oil seal is flipping ridiculous. Hara. Hyundais are even better and better, and the new Kona is going to be produced in Ulsan, South Korea. Oh, well, it's made in South Korea, then at least it's not China. I know South Korea is a pretty good place for making stuff in it. So, yeah. Well, there was a particular brand of electronics, computers, like that was made in South Korea. Was it Toshiba or was that Japan? I can't think of the name of it, but they were knocking out some decent computers. So they've come a long way. So at least it's not China, eh? At least it's not made in China. So I mean, Hyundai used to be sort of like a pretty low-level flipping car, isn't it? Cheap things. But yeah, but it's like everything, isn't it? Time's moved on, the years have gone by. They've got better and better as the years have gone by, haven't they? So yeah, there are some nice-looking Hyundais out there, I must admit. I'm not keen on the name Hyundai, but they do make some nice cars. The people are very happy with the quality, and my uncle has a Tucson 2021 Hyundai Tucson. Yes, I've seen a few of them rattling around. There's a few around here. Not bad looking, actually. Can you fix one Skoda for the YouTube? Well, it depends what was wrong with it. That's the thing. And it's having the time to do it. That's the other thing. What's that? Granny Penny? You're another new name. Greetings from Poland. Well, hello there from Poland, Granny Penny. I like that. I like that name. Good evening to you. Thanks for the videos of the Astra J. Very useful, and especially it's going to be useful for my dad that he had a Mondeo. He doesn't care anymore. He loves Opals. Opals are always the better quality, weren't they? Better quality than the Vauxhalls. If you had an Opal, you'd know it was built better because it was built in Germany. Well, that was the thing. Sunny night. Hello. How are you doing? Damien, Mk5 on 131,000, 2-litre diesel, had cam belt and water pump done. What mileage should the chain be changed? Also had an oil filter come loose. Oh yeah, dear. Oh dear. Oil dripping everywhere. Seems to be a... Yes, it is. Well, I'll start off with the oil filter. Yes, they do come loose. They bloody do. You can get one of them oil filters. I used to tighten oil filters up by my hand and then tighten up as tight as I possibly could by my hand. But I don't. But even doing that, they would come loose on the 2-litre diesel Mondeos. Now I get a strap wrench and I make sure they're really tight. So yeah, we've had loads of them come loose, and to the point where we recalled every single taxi to make sure they're all done up tight. Luckily, we've never had an engine blown up through it, but we've had a few that were leaking quite badly. We caught them all in time though. So whenever you have the oil and filter changed on that particular engine, You really need to make sure them filters are really done up nice and tight. And what mileage should the chain be changed? I don't think there is a stated mileage for the chain. I don't think there is. But to be honest with you, if you're concerned, I would do it at the second cam belt change. So I would say 200,000 miles, do the chain. And it's not the chain that goes wrong. It's not the chain that flexes. It's a short chain. It's not going to really cause a problem. It's the plastic guides on the tensioner that wear out because they're cheap and nasty. That's basically what it comes down to. They wear out, disintegrate, and then the chain runs across the metal part of the tensioner until it snags and finally breaks if it gets that far. So, and that normally, I'd say on average, it's after 240,000 miles, you start to get chain noise, and then it's time to change them. So I'd say if you change your chain at 200,000 miles, which would be your second cam belt replacement, then that'd be a good time to do it. Not a cheap job though. Yeah, if you can do it yourself, then all well and good. Mondo, well done on the 40k subs. Have you got the Milestone video sorted, or are you waiting for the big 50? No, I haven't made any videos. I haven't got nothing to make nothing on. I've got no inspiration at the minute. I've got no cars in at the minute that are worth talking about. It's like, I mean, I could talk about bullshit all day long, but I mean, I need something that's going to be sort of like some kind of interest to someone, and I just haven't got nothing at the minute to sort of like say this is worth making a video on. So as soon as something comes up, then I will do. But I might actually sort of like hang it out to the 50k if I get that far. So yeah, believe me, I'd love to make videos all day long, but I can't because there's either no time to do it because they're too busy, or there's just nothing there that's I can talk about. I haven't got a car there I can do anything on that's I haven't done before. So that's what the problems are. So, but never mind. As soon as I find something, I'll be on it. Where are the E.C.Us located on these cars? Not near the bottom corner of the front bumper passenger side. What car is it again? If it's the Mark IV Mondeo, it's behind the front bumper on the passenger side, bolted to the back of the windscreen washer bowl. The Mark V is on the driver's inner wing, underneath the bonnet. It shouldn't be too hard to find the E.C.Us on one of these cars because basically all your engine electrics, the wiring loom from your engine, will all go straight to the E.C.U. So all you've got to do is really follow the wiring, and chances are it will go underneath it'll either be on the bulkhead somewhere, or it'll go underneath the bloody wheel arch to wherever the E.C.U. is, and they tend to like putting them underneath the bloody front bumper on the Mark IVs. They do anyway. But yeah, follow the wiring, like all your injector wires. Follow them wires where they go round, and where the main wiring loom goes round. It will lead you to the E.C.U. Granny Penny. I had Mondeo with injectors in 2-litre TDCi from 2007. Bad starting in the morning. Tried to clean them with ultrasonic bath, but it made things worse. Yeah, I wouldn't go down the route of trying to clean injectors myself. I'd just replace them. But I'll tell you something. on it, if it's a 2007 2-litre, there's a number of things you want to go down, the route you want to go down first. Could be injectors. They're not cheap though. You'd be well worth checking your glow plugs are working as well, because they tend to fail and stop working. And I'd also check your engine compressions. Remember, on a diesel, especially one that gets a few years old, your compressions, which generally speaking, they want to be around about, I don't know, be nice to have them around about 300 pounds per square inch in each cylinder. If your compressions in your engine are down to 200 pounds per square inch in each cylinder, then I can pretty much guarantee you're going to have bad starting. Because it's too low, compressions are too low. And as the engines wear, they lose compression. That's just a fact for most diesels. As their engines age, they haven't got the compression they had when they were new. And when they get to a certain point, it causes poor starting. You need to get back on the Yorkshire Red. Well, have a look when I go up Tesco's. STE, hello. My Mrs. Cougar actuator went same engine as the Mondeo. Yeah, I'm not making that too much out what you're saying there. My Mrs. Cougar actuator went same engine. I think it is the same engine as in a Cougar as what they are in the Mondeo. The engines seem to find themselves in quite a lot of variety of different vehicles. Kyle, just had the oil leak from hell. Oh dear. My favourite, not on my 2015 Cougar. Only at 90k. Well, believe me, we've had them as sort of like low mileage as well on some of the 68 plates we got. It's a flipping nightmare. Not quite the 350 I saw. No, generally speaking, most of the cars, they will go at high mileage, but we've had a few of our 68 plates that have gone around about 100,000. And it's like, flipping heck, it's a lot of work. It's a shed load of work to actually change them two little hockey stick seals that go down your end cap. I mean, they cost next to nothing, but to get to them, it's like God Almighty. All I can say is that these must be the cars that have got to the end of the production line where they've got sloppy cutting the seals off, because them hockey stick seals, you're supposed to trim them off and leave a certain length, you know, so that when you push the sump up against them, well, not, it's not the sump, is it? It's like a sandwich plate. It will squash them, and there's springiness in them. So, but what's happening is them seals are shrinking with the heat of the engine. They're shrinking up inside the end cap, and then the oil's just flowing past because they've probably been cut too short. So they've shrunk and they've got no more to give in them. They've got no springiness left in them. And then the oil's just flowing past and pissing down out onto the floor. And you've got to take the subframe off. You've got to take the gearbox off. You've got to take the sump off. You've got to take the bloody oil pump off. It's a flipping, even if you're going at it, it would take you like a good day, probably 2 days in most cases. Yeah. No, the first ones we done, they were high mileage, but it's since I actually made that video, we've done quite a few, and there have been a couple of cases where we've had 2 of our 68s that are around about 100,000 miles. They've gone wrong, and I'm thinking these are the newest cars, the ones with the lowest mileage on it, and they're starting to leak. And it's like, I'm sure they're sort of like slinging them. Maybe they're the last cars and they're slinging them together on the production line, not giving a shit. My dad has a Mark II 1.8 16 valve Zetec Focus. He has just replaced battery and alternator. ECU still plays up and battery still drains itself. It sounds like you've got a bit of an issue with that car then. You know, on some of these modern cars, you can have something draining the battery. I mean, I know these have got these smart charging systems on them and all that, but it's like you might not even have a battery or alternator problem. It might be something that's actually draining the actual battery, something that's drawing the power when everything's switched off. So, and God only knows with a lot of these modern cars, because there's things that can be working and draining the power, and you wouldn't even know it. Are there any contacts which need a clean? No, the only thing you can do is make sure your battery terminals are clean, make sure your earth leads are clean and connected up properly. That's really, you know, where your leads go onto your starter and alternator and all that. Make sure everything's nice and tight and clean. There's not a lot more you can do. Just checking your basic earth leads and stuff and battery terminals. Had a 2008 Volvo S40 2 litre with the D420AT Pug engine. Always issues with injectors, and what a pain in the arse to get bleed and get running. Oh yeah. Well, you know them. If you've changed the fuel filter, I don't know if the Volvo is a different fuel filter, but whenever you change the fuel filter on one of them cars, they haven't got an electric pump in the tank, so the slightest bit of air gets into them systems, and they just crank over and over, and it's hard to get them started. But it's always happening at the garage. We've got like one of them like pumps with a handle on it that you pump up and down, and you've got a long pipe, and you connect that to your fuel return pipe on your engine, and you pump the handle, and it creates a vacuum and it sucks the fuel through. When you're cranking the engine over, you can pump the handle and it'll pull the fuel through, and they will start up ever so quick. But if you haven't got that piece of equipment, you could be in trouble trying to get one of these cars started again. It's always pays to make sure that fuel filter bowl is full of fuel when you fit a new filter. And even then, it can be touch and go whether they're going to start again. I know what you mean. They're not the best. If any air gets into that system, you're sort of like, they don't like going again. Daniel, I have a problem with the door on my Mark IV. The central lock on the right rear does not work. The central lock. Yeah, I should think it's the latch solenoid. The latch and the solenoid it's all one unit. So when the solenoid dies, which they do, you have to replace the whole latch and solenoid as one complete unit. And I did do a video on replacing the latch and solenoid assembly. I think it might have been a door handle actually, but I think I took the solenoid out as well. I can't remember. But they're not the easiest thing to take out of the door. We don't know how to do them. So, but you have to buy the whole assembly. That's what everything's like nowadays, isn't it? Not individual parts. You have to buy the whole caboodle. We've had plenty of them pack up, solenoids for central door locking. Michael, good evening. Good evening to you. Greece. Well, hello over there in Greece. I've been there. I've been to Athens. Yes, indeed. I went up the Acropolis Hill to the Parthenon, and I put my little flag in the ground. I done my selfie up there. We had a beautiful Sunday, okay? Blue skies, lovely sun. Stood up there on where the Parthenon was and viewed the entire city. It was absolutely fan-bloody-tastic. Beautiful. I loved it. And we had this hotel as well. You had a swimming pool on the roof of the hotel. It was absolute. What a place! And do you know what I loved about Greece as well? I loved the graffiti. It's everywhere. Loved it. I know graffiti might not. A lot of it was well done actually. It's a lovely city. I just like walking around. Yeah. But anyway, thank you, Michael. I would like to say thank you for all your videos. These are very useful. Well, thank you too. Costin. Mechanic is Propia Messina. Did you see AC compressor stacked on Mark 5? I had a huge vibration on starting and some smoke at the acceleration accessories belt. I took the fuse off for the moment. Oh, did you see AC compressor? We've had a few of the AC compressors pack up. I'll tell you what sometimes happens on them on the Mark 5s. I know the clutch unit on the end of the compressor can fall off. Literally, it can just fall off, and it can make a right racket and a bit of smoke and all that. And you might think something's really wrong, but then you'll find out your air conditioning is just not working anymore. And when you look down there, you see the clutch unit's gone. It's probably fallen on the road, or it's on your under tray or something. So we've had a few of them fall off. We just get a second-hand compressor unit, put another one on it. Robin, I was just watching your ST220 story and saw you and Monica dressed up as Santa. Yeah, we've done that sort of like over sort of like Christmas time. So I thought I had to sort of like do something a little bit out of the ordinary. Yeah, I enjoyed doing that actually. I quite like dressing up like that. Daniel, maybe it's a BCM. I just want to ask, does it do the DPF any harm if you just do long journeys over 50 miles and park up for 3 weeks, not moving and just long journeys? No, it won't do it no harm. The DPF, all the DPF is a filter. It's a filter. That's all it is. And the whole system around it is designed to remove all the harmful, dirty smoke and all the shit that comes out your engine and have clean emissions coming out the tailpipe. That's all it is. By doing long journeys, it's not going to harm the DPF at all. You can do long journeys all day bloody long. It's not going to make the slightest bit of difference. There's more chance of it doing harm doing very short journeys. But long journeys, you're perfectly fine. Don't worry. And leaving the car parked up for 3 weeks ain't going to make no blind bit of difference. I love watching you working on the Mondeos as it helps me with my Ford Galaxy. Yeah, the Galaxies are pretty much the same, aren't they? Well, the same engine and all that, gearbox and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I quite like the Galaxies. They're sort of like nice vehicles. I had a Galaxy once to drive around in. That's flipping, I can't remember what, it's 2002, I think it was. That's going back a bit. But yeah, that was nice. These more modern ones are very nice as well. Rick Kaz, Mark 409, 171k, 2-litre TDCI, Peugeot engine, getting a bit of blue smoke, but only when engine is cold overnight. After 30 seconds running, no smoke. You might have a glow plug out. You remember them engines that they kind of rely a little bit more on glow plugs to start up. It could be a glow plug issue. I'd definitely get the glow plugs checked out. One glow plug not working, the fuel's not going to get atomized in the cylinder properly, is it? So then you can get a bit of blue smoke. Could be a slight injector problem, or it could just be low compression in the engine again. causing a bit of blue smoke. So remember, diesels do not like the cold. Diesels like warm. So diesels do not atomize the diesel fuel very easily, very well when it's stone cold. That's why a lot of lorry drivers, you know, they'd mix a bit of petrol in with their diesel when it's really cold temperatures. So, yeah. Once the diesel engine's warmed up, they're fine. But they've never been good in the cold. Even though all these modern ones, you wouldn't notice it because the systems to make them work are so good now. But if you're in a very, very cold climate, they don't like starting. And they can be a bit ragged when they're first fired up. So you'll find that in the warmer weather, they're fine. Misanthropist. This is another name I like, misanthropist. Cost for Mark IV TDC timing chain at supply fit. God, blimey. I don't know. I don't think I've ever changed a chain for a customer. Not exactly cheap job. When you're talking about a cam belt kit, a water pump as well, you'd have to change at the same time. Then you've got your chain, and I think the chain is probably the best part of £100. Then you've got your tensioner, which ain't going to be exactly cheap. There's a shed load of gaskets and seals you need to replace. So you ain't going to have much change out of probably, off the top of my head, you're probably talking £1,200 to £1,500 at any kind of garage that was going to do that kind of job. So yeah, just be prepared for. It's going to be over £1,000, pretty much. To me, glow plugs need changing. Neil, I have a 66 plate Mark 5. It is an ex-taxi. It has all of a sudden gone into limp mode last Sunday. It did it twice. Any ideas? Well, if it's gone into limp mode, I would say there's a number of things it can be. Generally speaking, it could well be a block fuel filter. It could be a diesel injector leaking too much fuel back to the tank. It could be a broken spring in your high pressure fuel pump, or it could be your oil pressure control solenoid, which is next to your oil pressure switch. They play up a lot as well and cause the car to go in limp mode. You would have to get a diagnostic tool plugged into your diagnostic port of your car and read the engine E.C.U codes. That will point you in the right direction. Rick has, thanks, we'll take a look. Glow plug light doesn't stay on regardless of temperature. No glow plugs error. Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about the glow plug light, what that does, but I would definitely check for a live going down to your glow. I mean, when you first switch your ignition on in the morning, there should be a live feed going down to them glow plugs. So you should have at least 10 volt going to them glow plugs. And then that should stay on for a number of seconds, maybe 10 seconds or more. If you've got power going down to your glow plugs, then the problem is you need to, you've got the plug connector, like a 4-pin plug connector. So you can actually check, using a multimeter on ohms, you can check by one of the leads from your multimeter going to earth and the live lead from your multimeter going to each pin in turn in that plug, which goes down to your 4 glow plugs. You can check the resistance in the glow plugs. If any of them glow plugs are open circuit, which means there's a break in the wires, it'll be the plug that's at fault. So if you've got a dead glow plug, then you'll need to change it, and that could well improve your situation. But if you've got a mechanic who can sort of like check the wiring like that with a multimeter, then they'll soon tell you if you've got a glow plug that's dead or not. You haven't got to disconnect any wires on the glow plugs themselves. You can just use that plug connector that goes down to the glow plugs. You can pin them, check the pins one at a time. Yes, doesn't show, Rick. Mine never either. Also can be leaking injectors overnight. Well, yeah, you can get injectors dripping overnight. That can happen. So this is the trouble. It's never easy. It's just a case of going through one thing at a time until you get to the answer. Got the Mobile Heroes, our Mobo tyre fitter, Sprinter in on the weekend for new DPF. Its original has cracked and regen. Wonder if the engine will go pop. 270,000 miles more. God only knows. I thought Sprinters are pretty good though, weren't they? Think it's time for a leak-off test as well. Well, a leak-off test will certainly eliminate the injectors. Just remember, if you got the fluid coming out them leak-off pipes should go slowly out the pipes. But if you start the car up and the fluid comes to the leak-off pipe like woo, like that, and straight into the bottle, it starts running into the bottle. It should be dripping into the bottle, drip, drip, drip. But if it's running into the bottle, then you know that injector's up. You need that. Well, we need a new injector. LBKER. I have a Mk5 0.5 Focus ST TDCi 2 litre. It has a leak down back of engine. I was told this is a common problem with fuel pump gaskets. Yeah, depending what engine it is. Yeah, if it's the same engine that's in the Mondeo, they've got the high pressure fuel pump with an O-ring on it. It won't be that the O-ring that's leaking. That high pressure fuel pump goes onto it's like a little cog unit which bolts onto the cylinder head. And there's a gasket behind that cog unit where it connects to the cylinder head. And they're like a crush fit gasket, and the oil feed goes through that gasket. And it's a shitty design. It's not held on well enough. So you have to replace the gasket and also put a bit of a sealant on that gasket as well, around where the oil feed is, because they're just common for leaking. So it's not too big a job to do. You just got to take the high pressure fuel pump off and pull the cog unit off and change the gaskets. And in a few months' time, they'll probably be leaking again. But I do suggest putting some sealant, just a thin smear of sealant around the gasket where the oil feed goes through from the head into the cog unit. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to have to call it a night. We've been running for God only knows how long, nearly 2 hours again. So I'm going to have, if I can't get to all your comments, I do apologise. But I will be sort of like once a week. So if you can if you've got any questions you want to get in earlier, I'm just not very good at answering comments on the videos at the minute because I'm so far behind. But I'll try to rattle through them one day when I get the chance. So I'll just read this one. I have a 2018 Ford Focus ST diesel and engine management light has come on and I'm getting the fault code P2463. What would be the main reason for this? Do you know that one actually does ring a bell? But when you get the code, it should have some writing after it. So it's like, 1 minute. P2463. I shall quickly just have a quick look at this. Yeah. Diesel particulate filter restriction, soot accumulation. I've seen that code before. So basically, your DPF is blocking up. That, you see, that code itself is saying that your DPF is getting blocked. It's too much soot in the DPF. So your engine may not be regenerating the DPF, which means there could be a problem. There could be anything wrong, like a split vacuum pipe, boost control solenoid not working, faulty EGR valve. You could have a split in one of your turbo boost hoses. They will all cause a DPF to be blocked up. So that particular code you've got, is that the only code you've got, or is there other codes there? Because there might be other codes which are contributing to causing that code. Because what you'll eventually get, if you get too much soot accumulation, you'll get another code saying it's put your car into forced limited power. So you'll have limited power, obviously, so your turbo won't be working. And then you'll have to do the engine management light will be on permanently. You won't be able to clear it, and you'll have to do a static regeneration. But there's no point doing a static regeneration unless you find the actual cause of why the DPF is blocked up in the first place. So normally there is a reason why there is too much soot accumulation, like a split vacuum pipe, or I don't know, the solenoid, the boost control solenoid that goes on the side of your fuel filter housing might have stopped working, something like that, or like your boost control hose or boost hose off your turbo intercooler split, something like that. So you have to find out why your DPF is blocking up in the first place. If there are no other codes and it's just soot accumulation, you can try doing a static regeneration. And if it comes down to within, and it carries out a full static regen and clears all the soot, then, and there's no reason for it, it might just be one of these things. It might just be short journeys you've done, or for whatever reason it's blocked up. But generally speaking, there's a reason why the DPFs get blocked. So it would be interesting to plug a scanner into your car and actually see what other codes run alongside that P2463. So I should think there's probably something else there as well. Any engine with a wet belt is a very bad idea. Yes, I totally agree. P2463 DPF, low fuel in tank. Well, yeah, it has been said that if you run your diesel around with a very low amount of fuel in your tank, this can cause soot accumulation. And we get this. We do get this from a lot of the taxi drivers. They're running around on like 10 miles worth of fuel, 10 miles of range in their cars. And this could well be contributing to sort of like this kind of problem. So if you're running around on very low fuel, I'd stick some more fuel in it. What's that? Thank you, Jonathan. Anyway, I'm going to have to call it a night because time's getting on, and this is live stream's running on too long. One day, when I don't have to get up for work no more, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go on all flipping night, right? So all of you lot will get so bored and pissed off, you'll all go to bed, and I'll still be here by myself, and there'll be no one watching. But when that day comes and I haven't got to work no more, then I'll do that. We'll do an all-nighter, and I won't care because I can sleep all bloody day, can't I? Because I won't have to go to work. So, but anyway, but at the moment I have to get up the next day, so I'm going to have to sort of like call it a night. So I mean, it's like I'm never going to get through all these comments. But I say, when I start a live stream, if you get your comment in as early as possible, then I'll try and get to as many as I can. But it's been like 2 hours now, so my voice is going and my Jack Daniels is running out. So thank you everybody for joining the live stream. I do appreciate you all stopping by and saying hello and flinging your questions at me and anything else. And in time, I'll sort of like hopefully get a few of you people actually coming onto the screen here with me. If you give me your email address, I'll send you a link so you can come and join me on the screen. So we'll probably do that in the future. We can find some more topics to talk about. And I think next week, Kevin Ruff is going to be joining me, hopefully. He's going to be talking about another car. So I'll have some company next week. So but anyway, until then, thank you, everybody. Another Wednesday night over with. Thursday, tomorrow, another day closer to the weekend. So take care out there, everybody. I'll see you all in the next one. So with all your car problems. Oh, well, I don't know what we're going to talk about next week anyway. It's going to be Kevin's choice. He's going to pick a car, no doubt. So we'll let you know when I put out the thumbnail for next week's live stream. But yeah, enjoyed this evening. It's been cool. So thank you, everybody. See you all in the next one. Adios.